Representative Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii called for the end of U.S. assistance to Saudi Arabia. While speaking at a 9/11 tribute museum in New York City on Tuesday, she said this: "We should not be selling them our weapons. We should not be aiding or providing them with any kind of support so long as they continue with the kind of actions that I've just spoken about," she said. The Democratic presidential candidate slammed Saudi Arabia for the death of the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi in its consulate in Istanbul last year, as well as for its conflict in Yemen. She also called for the release of the results of an investigation into whether Saudi Arabia's government or people in its government had any involvement in September 11th. The FBI last month released the name of a Saudi official from a 2012 report that the Bureau has long declined to release, turning it over to lawyers for families of 9/11 victims. Saudi Arabia has denied any connection to the 9/11 hijackers, and she said this, Representative Tulsi Gabbard: "The American people deserve to know exactly what happened and who was behind it. I'm calling on the Trump administration and the FBI to release the findings of their investigation." And also, we got a super chat from Kate. "What do you say to people who say they won't vote Bernie because he had a heart attack?" Question mark. All right, it's a little bit off subject, but maybe we'll focus on that after this.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit after the show.
Yeah, a little bit after.
Yeah,
I
have
to
think about that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So thank you for that super chat. So I just want to really mention this. This is fantastic because Tulsi Gabbard is, again, gaining momentum and really putting herself out there in front of the media and challenging both parties in regards towards corruption, inept leadership, and a clear lack of concern for the American people as well as the safety of the United States. And again, you know, with the very fact that this report is now being released, I mean, we need to really look into what happened and why certain documents were hidden from the American people. You know, and not to go into some kind of conspiracy rant, but, I mean, release the information. Just don't keep it hidden. And look, it's no secret. The United States has a very close working relationship with Saudi Arabia. You think anything was going to change under Trump? No, it's been going on, especially since Reagan was in office. We have a system in which the United States basically gives resources, money, weapons and ammunition just to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And in turn, you know, they're not really being, I don't know, wise about it. They're not really being open about what they do with those resources and the material that we give them. I mean, let's look at what's happening in Yemen. There's a genocide that's happening there, and who's leading it? Saudi Arabia. We have a system of corruption and inept leadership. But Daniel, take it away real quick.
Yeah, so this goes into them. This is the same person who brought us the, hey, America, can we, like, you know, maybe not give terrorist weapons act? Was the Stop Funding Terrorism Act?
Yeah.
But I like to say the please stop giving terrorist weapons, and then say that we have terrorists that we have to go kill. So Saudi Arabia has a whole host of issues, but they also have a lot of oil. And in America today, modern corporate America, the falling empire of America, that oil is worth more than human lives. So this is a big reason that Tulsi Gabbard is seen as a Russian puppet, because how else are you going to disagree with her? Tulsi Gabbard says, hey, America, we're a great country, right? Let's not do genocide. What are you going to say? Let's do genocide? No, you can't say that. What you say is, you're a Russian. We shouldn't listen to you. Anything that you say, we have to discount, not worthy, not useful, not good. Because if they do any other thing than that, what are they really saying? They can't argue. I mean, this is such a obvious thing. Hey, let's stop arming terrorists. Hey, let's stop with genocide. Hey, let's stop backing dictatorships. There's no logical, reasonable thing that you can come back with. There's no counter that's like, oh, yeah, that seems good, that seems wholesome, that seems American.
Well, and the thing that makes what Tulsi is saying have veracity is if they did come back and say, you're nuts, these aren't, you know, terrorists that we're funding, this is the right thing to do, here's the evidence that shows that what we're saying is correct, and Tulsi would have to back down and be like, oh, I evaluated this wrong because in lieu of this new evidence, then we really are on the right side of this thing. Oh, but they can't do that. So instead they have to try and say, well, don't listen to the person that's trying to uncover my malfeasance because everything they say comes from the mouth of a communist.
Yeah.
Or something.
And see, again, this just goes again prove that Tulsi Gabbard is is a true threat to the establishment, because let's face it, the United States has a very strong military-industrial complex, and of course one of the biggest buyers is Saudi Arabia. And someone in the live stream chat also correctly pointed out that, yeah, the relationship with Saudi Arabia even goes back further since Reagan. So yeah, we have a long working relationship with Saudi Arabia, but the people who are profiting the most are the large oil industries, as well as the military-industrial complex in the top 1%. But at least there's one candidate that has the courage to call it out. And let's face it, it's Representative Tulsi Gabbard. And again, goes to show to proof why she needs to be on the 5th Democratic debate stage. But Daniel, it's the final word.
Yeah, so I want to remind everyone that we were initially more allied with Iran. The real difference, it's like, okay, why are we with Saudi Arabia, this terrible dictatorship that has sorcery laws and beheads people for I guess, sorcery or all these other things.
Well,
and you have
apostasy, right?
Yeah, and then you have Iran,
Sounds like the Imperium,
which has it's a very, very nice country. I'm sure they have very good rugs as well. Other things, stereotype, is because one of those countries gave us oil at the price we wanted, and the other doesn't. That's the distinction that we all have to remember that this comes down to. If Iran, from the start, gave us oil at the price we wanted, and Saudi Arabia didn't, in this day and age right now, we would be enemies with Saudi Arabia and strong allies with Iran, because it's not anything else. We are simply doing what empires do and doing what empires always do, and that is a direct path.
Yep. And again, more evidence. I mean, come on. Tulsi Gabbard is the one who's calling this stuff out. We have an out-of-control military-industrial complex, and when we send young men and women who are wearing our uniform, United States military uniform, and they go out there serving these foreign wars, the only people getting hurt are the working-class people and the families of those servicemen and women. And we got to stop this, because the aftermath of 9/11 has caused nothing but tragedy, not only for the people here in the United States, but worldwide. And it's got to end now, and the FBI and Trump administration need to do the right thing and actually make those reports public. We need to know what's really going on, and we need to call into question our relationship with Saudi Arabia. I hope Representative Tulsi Gabbard brings that up on the 5th Democratic debate stage. But now we got another.
We have our quick super chat question.
Yeah, exactly.
Got a minute.
Our quick super chat question. What I would say is that, well, Bernie Sanders is doing actively well. He didn't have a heart attack. He just had stents put in. So
it was technically a heart attack.
I mean,
technically,
yeah, but he's out there back on the campaign trail again. His momentum isn't going anywhere. He's going up in the polls. I mean, basically, look, if you think that he's a weak candidate, fine, but the evidence shows otherwise.
There were a lot of great responses in the chat.
Okay, let's hear it.
But some of them were things like, well, at least he has a heart, which a lot of people were like, I wish I said that.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
But then the other one I think alludes to, I think Human's been saying this, alludes to one of the things that I've been saying a lot is that, well, a stent tends to open up your blood vessels in your heart and give someone who had partially clogged arteries a lot of vigor initially, at least for the first several years after that first stent is put in. So I don't see any problem here.
So I would say that I think that there's a answer behind this answer. And the first thing is, if someone asks you about Bernie's heart attack, figure out if they're actually asking about Bernie Sanders' heart attack. Because in my experience, when people say that, it's a gotcha line. That's all it is. It's really saying, I already don't like Bernie Sanders, and here's something that's negative about him, so let me stick my fingers in someone's eye. And so if someone's like that, if that's where they're coming from, they're not coming from an actual question to be answered point of view, you really can't do a whole lot. But if it is someone who's generally like, I like Bernie Sanders, but I'm really worried, bring up VP. Bernie Sanders needs to pick a good VP. If he has a good VP, he has his insurance. And then just to Paul's point that this is a very minor heart attack, like almost technically a heart attack, very close. He was he had the operation, he was up in 24 hours saying, okay, let's go back on the trail. And everyone around him had to say, Bernie, calm down another time. Mm-hmm. So figure that part out first. If it's really someone who has a real question, if you sit down and talk to them, they will accept it.
Shout out to DCK Punk. True story, my grandfather and father both had stents, and they did much better for many years after. You know what? I think Bernie Sanders is going to be doing pretty well, too, because he's not going anywhere.